You're listening to the Three Angry Giant Fans and a Jet Fan podcast with your hosts Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Jets fan Novak. Listen to us free on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Blacker for the Giants. Monday morning, they announced the firing of special teams coordinator Thomas McGahee and offensive line coach Bobby Johnson. Later in the afternoon, they parted ways with linebacker coach Drew Wilkins and his brother, defensive assistant Kevin Wilkins. And now, defensive coordinator Wink Martindale has reportedly resigned. Now, Monday morning, head coach Brian Daboll said that he expected Martindale to be the team's D coordinator again for the 2024 season, but now he'd be looking for a new DC. Martindale interviewed for head coaching jobs in the past, and he'll get more looks this offseason due to the recent Black Monday firings across the league. Now, it was reported several weeks ago that the relationship between Daboll and Martindale was in a, quote, bad place, and it didn't dramatically improve in recent weeks. Now, Wink is regarded as an aggressive, blitz-happy coordinator that gets the most out of his players. He spent 10 years in Baltimore before working the last 2 with the Giants. Now, he's leaving a Giants defense that tied for the NFL lead in takeaways, and that defense carried the team throughout the second half of the season. Wink just wrapped up on his 19th season in the NFL and his 36th year in coaching. Good luck, Coach.
So there's lots to talk about in Giant and Jetland this week, even though our teams are not relevant for the playoffs. And that was a recording talking about the moves the Giants have made, firing the special teams coordinator, firing their linebackers coach, the assistant defensive coordinator, and then Wink resigning. And there's a lot behind Wink Martindale resigning, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I did look it up, though. The real Wink Martindale is still alive, and he's 90 years old. So
he is.
He's still kicking. He's still kicking.
Wow.
Damn. If this was the Howard Stern Dead or Alive game, I would have voted dead. I would have lost that.
Well, we know the Wink Martindale as a football coach is sure alive because he's making a lot of waves right now. So before we get into that, we are the Three Angry Giant Fans. This is your host Scott, Cardone, and Jets fan Novak. Giant Mike is on sabbatical. He's playing darts tonight, so he's throwing bullseye. We'll hopefully be hitting bullseyes with our commentary, but Mike's left us stranded. He's a sportsman.
Maybe he put Goodell in the center of the dartboard to help him.
Is it? Now I haven't been to one of these darts events. Is it sort of like bowling where you bring your own ball? Like does he have his own dart bag?
Oh, he's got his own dart set. He's got
case.
It's in a case.
A little case, right? A little silver case.
It's got to be, right?
Does he sharpen it at night? Goes home and takes a little stone out and sharpens the thing. Is that how this works?
He's got new flights on it. Every now and then the flight will fall off. Got to put a new one in.
I have a lot of questions about this. Does he have the little glove on where
right.
I mean
like the bowler's wrist, whatever that thing's called to keep the wrist straight or something. Yeah.
Is he sponsored by Chico's bail bonds?
Was that Buttermaker's Bears, I think, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, does he is it like disc golf where you have there's a putter and then there's a driver? Does he have different weighted darts for depending on where you need to hit the board? I don't know anything about it. We're having a great laugh at his expense right now, and he has no idea. This is great.
He may actually have more weights to it. I know there's different weights. It's not like though you throw at different areas. I mean, it's just your preference on which one you want. But
is there a referee though, weights and measures, where that comes around and? With the hockey, remember they used to measure the stick, the curvature of the hockey stick. Remember that used to be a penalty if it was, what was it, unsportsmanlike if you had too much curvature on your blade. I can just see a guy coming over and docking Mike 2 points or some shit to start the round. This is too heavy. This dart too heavy.
He hates the officiating in darts too.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, let's give a shout out. So. We're going way up north, I think, to a state we haven't highlighted before. So, hello, Rutland, Vermont. Population 15,807. So it's population 15,000, almost 16,000, and yet it's the third largest city in Vermont. That's like a village in California.
Yeah. That's Walmart. That's like a Walmart store in California.
So it was founded in 1761 and named after John Manners, Now, you might say, how is Rutland named after John Manners? Well, he was the third Duke of Rutland.
Oh.
And it was one of the world's largest marble producers. And the notable person that lived there, John Deere, the guy who started the John Deere Corporation.
Tractor.
Of course, he did move to Illinois because I always said to myself, I think John Deere is in the Midwest. And it was.
Isn't it
It
Iowa?
was Iowa. I think it's Iowa, isn't it?
I think it probably was in Iowa, but John Deere himself moved to Illinois.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Vermont is one of those states this time of year. I think, why the hell would anyone live there? I mean,
God.
I'm sure this listener is a great person and all of that, but you ever meet these people down south? They're like, I miss the cold. Shut up. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't miss the cold for shit.
I miss the cold. What do you miss about it?
Yeah.
Like, freezing cold, going to your car, taking 12 minutes to warm up, and get the hell out of here. Driving on ice and snow. The fuck.
Well, we'll talk. I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that Jets New England game looked just horrific with the snow and the rain and the sleet and everything else. That and the quality of football being played.
Oh,
there's that. We'll get into that. Yes.
Yeah.
So lots of news going on. So following what happened in Giants land, the Giants fired their special teams coordinator and Thomas McGonahay, and then they also fired Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach. But the big news coming out is they also let go of the Wilkins brothers. One was a linebacker coach. I think one was an assistant defensive coach. And those guys were Wink's right-hand men. And out of the aftermath of that, Wink came out and resigned. And then there's been a whole cloud of secrecy over his resignation. He's saying he didn't officially resign, but he's going to resign. And apparently the reports that Jay Glazer had about him and Dable not getting along are true. And it all stemmed, and I'm doing this on hearsay that I heard about half an hour before he came on. It all stemmed from the second game in Dallas, when apparently Wink went off the reservation and did his own game plan apart from what Dable wanted to do, and just sent the house at Dallas, and Dable wanted him to be really conservative. And since then, things have just bubbled over. Now, the Giants did have a good, strong finish to the end of the year defensively. They had a lot of turnovers. Turnovers, though, we've seen time and time again, it's not transferable. Like, it doesn't go from year to year, team to team. So turnovers tend to be somewhat of a matter of luck. So Wink's defenses last year and this year have been ranked in the bottom half of the league. He left Baltimore under similar situation where he wasn't asked to come back, and he still had a year on his contract. So, the question becomes, is this a problem with Wink? Is this a problem with Dable? And there's a couple questions at the end that are going to talk about that, and we'll probably get into this deeper. But initial thoughts on what's going on? I'll probably throw it to Chris and Scott.
Yeah, I think. Well, with the when you have a 6-11 season coming off the year that the Giants did, you start thinking, who's gone, who's staying, who's gone, right? That's the first thing that starts going through your head. Of course, it's not, Dable's safe. We know that. It's obviously not going to be the head coach. Then you start thinking, right, you go down. You go to the coordinators, then you go all the staff and the assistant coaches. I feel like we're focused on the wrong side of the ball a little bit. I tell you one guy, Mike Kafka. Have you heard his name, Scott? Or in terms of being in the rumor mill of being asked to leave or firing his ass? Because if anything, it's this offense that needs to continue to overhaul. It's game planning, it's schemes, it's coaching. You brought up, I had written down a couple miscellaneous stats before we came on, and you just mentioned the turnovers. And I'll disagree a little bit, Scott, slightly in terms of like turnovers from year to year, because some teams are just better at causing turnovers. I see certain teams that are better at punching the ball out when they have guys, with running backs, carrying the ball in the middle of a pile, or stripping the ball, or just ball hawking a little bit more with interceptions and things of that sort. So, Wink kind of had that reputation in Baltimore. And the stat I'm going to throw out there, the Giants, they finished tied for first in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens with 31 takeaways and also tied first with Baltimore with a plus 12 turnover differential. That's insane when you consider how the season started. Because didn't the Giants, weren't they the last team to get a turnover? The Giants,
Yeah,
it was like week 5 before they even had a turnover. So they led the NFL since week 5 with 31 takeaways, whatever. So as far as the defensive side of the ball and what's going on there, yeah, I'm disappointed that Wink is out. I think his ability to at least be aggressive is something I liked with this Giant team. But we've seen past coordinators like Patrick Graham and other guys that just sit back and just let the ball just get shoved down your throat. So I'm kind of sad and mad to Wink out, or to see Wink Martindale out as coordinator. So as far as some of the other guys, yeah, offensive line coach, get him out. Special teams coach, goodbye. Who else? A few other guys that you mentioned. So no surprises there, I think. But I don't know. It's another offseason where there's there's going to be a lot of personnel changes. There's going to be roster changes. Once we get into the whole draft, strategies and all those kinds of things down the road, we have plenty of time to kick that around. But my initial reaction, Scott, is I had heard the same thing about Wink in terms of something like some friction there with Dable. That's not uncommon, guys, right? And in today's NFL, you see this a lot with head coaches and coordinators and other personnel. They just don't see eye to eye and things. So, and it's not if the head coach, it's not his time to go, they're going to axe the coordinator and axe the coaches. So little just upset about Wink, but the rest of the changes, yeah, I'm good with.
Yeah, and like I said, we're going to hold the deeper talk about Wink till the end, but I will say this about the situation. I don't think this is a situation the Giants didn't want him back. I don't think Wink wanted to be here anymore. So Kafka, there was a report like a few weeks ago saying both Kafka and Wink were not going to return. I could see them retaining Kafka. I think getting rid of the offensive line coach, where the offensive line hasn't seen any improvement, is probably a big help. And we'll see what the plan is in the offseason. Now, here's a stat that's great. Giants have the largest sack differential in NFL history, minus 55 this year.
Wow.
So, and you have to figure Tibbs had over 10 sacks this year. Lawrence had a few. So that offsets the number that the Giants gave up. So the Giants gave up a historic high number of sacks. I think the number ended up being 87 or so. But the largest sack differential in NFL history. So they've been keeping the stat, I think, since 80 or 81. It was when Taylor first came into the league. I actually think LT might have lost his first year in terms of not having sack totals recorded then. But it was right around that time, 80 or 81.
Yeah.
Can I give the cynical outsider's perspective on this?
Sure.
No one gives a shit what a Jet fan thinks of the Giants, but I'm just giving it to you because I'm not as close to it. But it reeks to me a little bit of, you remember the beginning of the year when Daboll used to have the players would come off and he would start ripping Daniel Jones and he'd be yelling at the coordinator and always in the vein of, it's not my fault that this shit's happening. And I'm going to make sure on national television that I'm going to call these people out so the whole world knows I'm not the problem. This kind of reeks of that too a little bit for me. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. I'm not the problem. It's all these coaches, this shitty coaching staff that I have. That's why we're 6-11. Now, I'm not saying that's the thing, but it does reek a little bit of that. He's got no, in my mind, and you guys might disagree, he's got no leeway here now. He's gotten rid of all the guys. Now it's on him. So he better produce next year is the way I would see it.
Well, and that is one of the questions we have is what happens in 2024. Is this a make or break year? I think it is. We'll answer that later. But the only qualifying thing I'll say, Novak, on that is that I don't think Dable wants to fire Wink. I think this is more of a situation of Wink wanting to leave.
I don't know that. So
he's taking his ball and he's going home because he felt like Dable yelled at him and things like that. I don't think he wanted to be told what to do on defense. And again, you're looking at a guy who's a career coordinator, old school coordinator, but you look at him on the sidelines, you look at his demeanor, you look at the way he's exited other teams. He's not head coach material. No. And there's a reason behind that. And there's when guys are not head coach material, they usually have some sort of flaw with them. And like I said, we'll get into this a little bit deeper later. But I agree with what you're saying about Dable, deflecting blame possibly. I don't think it's necessarily pertinent to the Wink discussion, but it can be pertinent to some of the other things that he has done this season on the sideline. So one thing we did see this week, so the Giants and Jets both convincingly had divisional wins in week 18. Giants finally just beat the tar out of the Eagles, and the Eagles went into that game with a chance to be the NFC East leaders. And again, another season. So I think this is 18 seasons in a row. The NFC East has not had a repeat winner in the division. And the Jets just took it to New England on Belichick's his last game there. Breece Hall had a monster game. I will say this, when I did try to watch that game, it was very tough to stay on it for more than a series before having to turn off, because they're just it looked like slop. I mean, you're playing in the snow and everything else.
I didn't watch a lot of the Jet Pats game, other than just I like watching games in bad weather. So a snow game is always fun to watch, Absolutely. But but I definitely want to touch on the Giants and Eagles. About both teams. I mean, obviously the Giants look pretty good. A couple things with the Giants. It's just weird in a game like that where you really didn't know what Eagle team was going to show up. Let's start with the Eagles actually. I've watched a lot of years of bad football, especially with the Giants. A lot of bad football teams and games that don't count at the end of the year. And this Eagle team, this game actually did count for them. And the NFL did that strategically, where games that had affected other games, they played them at the same time. So there really wasn't a serious chance that maybe Dallas was going to lose to Washington, but you don't know that at 4:00 when you take the field. So the Eagles still have a chance to win this division. And in all the years of watching the NFL and watching bad teams, have you ever seen a team less interested in winning a football game than the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday? I couldn't believe it. Wow. Really. I mean, the Giants were, we've talked about this all the time. I mean, the team that just comes out with more energy and more fervor is, that's the dangerous team. I don't care what your record is or what's going on. And the Giants just said, fuck it, we're going to win this game. Like they came out and played with a lot of energy. But I've never seen a team, that Eagle team, and I know they had some guys already out. They were injured. Devontae Smith was out. They had a couple other guys. Swift was out. And then Brown went down early in the game. And then I want to also talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. I know Hurts has been banged up, but you guys know how I feel about Eli Manning. I absolutely worshiped the guy when he was playing. I loved the guy, loved everything about him. But that guy was knocked his entire career about his facial expression, that dumb look he had on his face. You don't know if the guy cares. How come no one is saying that about Jalen Hurts? This fucking guy, his body language and that puss on his face. Have you ever seen a guy like harder to read with what's going on with his body language and the face that he has trotting around out there? It's ridiculous.
He had the same expression during that game, no matter what. He was just blank.
Well, Scott, he's always like that. I've watched a lot of the Eagles this year, and that's Jalen Hurts. That's who he is. He's not knocked for that. He's like, oh man, he's intense and he's into the game and he's focused. Bullshit, man. This guy, that team Sunday, there's something going on there. I mean, we'll get into our predictions later, for the playoff games and everything, because you'll see definitely a different Eagle team next Monday night when they face Tampa down there in the wild card round. But guys, I watched a lot of. I mean, I watched that whole game, and I've never seen an NFL team in any year, or regardless of what the record was, eliminated, not eliminated, you name it. I'm not kidding. I've never seen a team less interested in winning a football game, and I don't know what that's about, man. Going into I thought I predicted the Eagles to win last week just because of the record they have over the Giants. Just thinking they want to go into the playoffs on a positive note, get some energy, get back to that winning feeling. And man, they couldn't care less about just putting any effort forward. Doesn't make sense, man. So if I'm an Eagle fan, man, I know some Eagle fans and they're concerned about this team going into the playoffs, and I guess you should be.
Weren't the Eagles 10-1 at one point?
They were. Mm-hmm.
If they were,
yes.
they finished the season with 11 wins, right?
Yes, the first. Now, of course, it's 17 games rather than 16. Novak, as a Jet fan, I'm counting on you to remember this because I remember.
I know where you're going.
So you know where I'm going to go. If you're going to mention it,
Jets.
Yes, the 1986 Jets started 10-1. Also, I believe lost 5 straight. to finish
Like
at
10
10
and
and 6. So the Eagles join the Jets now as the only team to start 10-1 and finish the season with 11. They said 11 or fewer wins. So the Jets didn't win another game after they were 10-1.
No.
Correct. But if you remember, they won the wild card game. Yes,
they did.
Yeah,
They beat Kansas City and then
they
went
did.
on to lose to Cleveland and the divisional round. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and like
so
you mentioned,
now go ahead, Scott.
No, I was going to say, like you mentioned, we are going to make our predictions later, but I will say this. The Eagles drew probably the best opponent they could in the wild card round.
Yep.
You know, and this, but when I look at this Eagle team, you know what I have flashbacks to actually, and it's ironic because the Giants ended up playing the Eagles that year. It's the Plaxico shot himself year.
Yes.
Where the Giants were cruising, they're on cruise control, and all of a sudden just the bottom dropped out. And it seemed to coincide with Plaxico shooting himself. This Eagle team has been on a free fall the last several weeks. And look, I think they went into that game initially trying to win, and the Giants just blew their doors off from the first two series, which has been a complete diversion from what normally happens in the Giant Eagle games. And then once A.J. Brown got hurt, there was that fumble, and then Hurts, jammed his finger. I think they just said, fuck it, we're out of here. But
no, they definitely, they absolutely just decided to quit, but even the first couple series, the first quarter, you could just tell like, wow, this Eagle team, they just didn't show up. But what's interesting, I want to just point out one play, is Scott, the whole season, and I hate doing this because it's like, where was this all year? You know what I mean? That's the last thing I want to do, in week 18 or whatever it is. And I definitely was not doing that, during the game, but one particular play, that Jets sweep on the 3-yard line with Barkley. It's like we all of a sudden we know how to use Saquon Barkley in week 18.
He had amazing. He had an awesome wheel route too.
A wheel route, exactly. I was going to bring that one up too. The wheel. So two particular plays with Barkley, because I've been screaming like find creative ways to get the ball in this guy's hands, and we do it in a fucking meaningless game, in week 18. That's the kind of, it just drives you nuts seeing those kinds of plays that you just I haven't seen it once all year, and all of a sudden it comes out in this particular week. But good effort by the Giants to at least end the year on a positive note. I was asked, a little bit during the week, like, as far as draft pick or beating the Eagles. I'm like, I'll take beating the Eagles. I don't care. We only lost one draft slot.
One spot. Yeah.
We lost one spot, and it went to the Chargers,
who aren't going to pick a quarterback.
Who aren't going to take a quarterback. So dropping one spot. So what are the Giants? The Giants are sixth, I think.
Giants are sixth.
Yep.
Giants are sixth. That's fine. To beat the snot out of the Eagles, at least to have, to go out, finish the year on that note, and continue the Eagles' downfall and have them question themselves going to the playoffs. I'll take it, man. I felt good, even though the game didn't mean anything for the Giants. Sure felt good as a Giant fan beating that fucking team from Philly.
Well, and the Giants finished with 6 wins, and you think about at least 2 to 3 games they could have had different results in. Especially if you looked at
Buffalo and the Jets.
Yeah. If you go by the AMS percentages, the deeper stats where the Giants had like a 99% chance to win midway through the fourth quarter in 3 games and lost them. But the Jets finished with 7 wins, one more than the Giants, and I think the Jets are picking 10th. Is that right?
They are. Yep.
10th.
Picking 10th.
So thoughts on that last game, possibly for Bill Belichick in New England?
Well, I feel almost exactly like Cardone does. I mean, I would just rinse and repeat the same feedback. It's just, for anyone to tell me that they wanted to lose because of a better draft choice, get the fuck out of here. You don't know the difference between the 10th pick and the 7th pick any different than anybody else. You have no idea who's going to be around, how that's going to all play out. I felt a little different, a couple of years ago when they were guaranteed to get the number 1 for Trevor Lawrence. It's a very different scenario than a draft choice, number slot, or whatever. It felt great to finally have, they were doing snow angels on the Eagles, on the Patriots field. Belichick cheat was sick. He couldn't see. Watching him walk out a loser against the Jets I felt finally great. It was good to see them finally get this win and 15 losses in a row to the Patriots. So if nothing else, we don't have to worry about that next year. I don't have to hear about that stupid streak anymore. That's gone. It's done. It's over. They beat him. Great. And Belichick can go out and coach wherever the hell he's going to coach. And then I don't know if you want me to get into it or not, but the shit after the game is when I got angry, after I lost all the good vibes about having beaten the Patriots finally. And then this stuff just unravels yet again.
Well, before you get to that, I do want you to go through that. I love the fact that Belichick leaving the field looked like he was in Antarctica. Like
He did.
said, he had like a slit right here where his eyes were, and the rest of it was all bundled up and everything else.
He looked like Captain Stillman in Stripes. Remember, like, you screw this up, Stillman, you'll be assigned to a weather station above the Arctic Circle. And remember they showed the clip, the still of Stillman.
Yeah.
Stillman. And that looked like Belichick.
It did.
He looked like Captain Stillman, all like frozen up there.
It's great. I just wish I could have seen his fat face because I wanted to see that scowl as he lost to the Jets finally on his last game as a Patriot. But whatever, they won. Good.
I saw Kraft get out of the box early too.
He did.
He went by some fan.
That.
He's moving through really quickly.
That was nice.
Out of my way! Out of my way!
Yeah, again, Novak, it's got to feel good too. I mean, New England dead last in the AFC by themselves. I mean, 4-13. It's about time that team has feeling some pain and suffering.
It's been
also too because
years.
And being a New York sports fan like myself, like Boston and Philly, right, are our two biggest hatred, and so
Absolutely.
They lumped them in with the Red Sox, Celtics, and the Bruins, and just to have a sit through that season, choke on that, New England fans,
Exactly. Philly and New England this weekend was great to see that.
Yeah, no doubt
happen.
So Novak, the aftermath.
God.
Dick took over this week, basically.
Yeah. Look, I had to look at my notes on this shit. So, first of all, I'm gonna give props to you guys and Hisman for coming up with the greatest, most perfect nickname of all time. It is appropriate. It is perfect. It defines this guy as the Dick. Now, why can't this podcast and that nickname go viral? Because this guy needs to be called that, because that's what he is.
We've been calling him that.
I don't know.
Seriously, since we've come on day
one. It sounds like a Cardone
one.
thing. Was that you, Cardone, that probably came up with that? And then you guys adopted it, and it was.
I think
perfect.
it was. I think I don't remember exactly.
We were talking about the clavicle. Yeah. I know that.
Yeah. And the guy, he's just been a dick his entire career. I think we were talking on the pod, back a couple of years ago.
I think it was year one, actually.
It might have been. And I think it was after a game where he was just, the Packers had lost and he was blaming everybody but himself. You know what I mean? Like he was talking about everything. Like, I'm like, you ass, like, what a dick. You know what I mean? The guy, he won't just say, hey man, we got to do better. He couldn't just say like, I got to do better or I need to play better than that. It's always somebody else's, fault that the team lost.
And that's the whole thing, because after the game, someone asked him on some interview, it wasn't McAfee. They're like, what do the Jets need to do next year? As if he's the GM. Well, we got to get rid of the non-winning football BS. Oh, really? And then the next sentence is, by the way, tune in tomorrow with me in the Pat McAfee show so I can talk about Kimmel, the Epstein list, the coronavirus, and everything else he talks about on there.
Yeah.
You're the one bringing it in, dude. So don't tell me that the Jets have to get rid of the non-winning football BS. You're the one bringing it in. So shut up. So that's the epitome of a dick.
The guy, he's won one title. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, even, I'm sorry, man. That's like, it's not enough, dude, for what for as talented as he is, that the Green Bay team he was on, to have only one, that's a disaster. I'm sorry. Come on. The guy,
he's just, and then Saleh, did you hear this? So Saleh at his press conference comes up.
A clean-shaven Saleh
said, we've done some really cool things this year. We've done some cool things. What? You beat the Eagles for the first time, which was an embarrassment that was ever a streak, and you beat the Patriots after 15 straight losses. How about get up there at a press conference after another losing season to this fan base and say, I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of being an embarrassment. We're going to work our asses off to get a winning product on the field for this godforsaken franchise with this fan base that has suffered for decades. How about losing? How about breaking the 55-year Super Bowl streak, or the 22-year AFC East not winning that streak, or the 15-year playoff streak, or the 8 years after not having a winning season? Tired of losing. I'm tired of losing, and this time of year rooting for your team, or Devin Tier's team, or Coons' team. I want my own team to root for. I want you guys to root for me. Tired of it. Oh, I'm sick of losing. It's why I'm wearing black. I'm over losing with this team.
Love it. That's what I didn't even hear that. Solid. That's what you're getting
We've
from your
done
head
some
coach.
cool things.
We did some cool. Who's he talking about? The cameraman and the technical director?
Yeah.
Like,
I got a cool thing. How about you quit and go do a beard cream commercial or something?
I really was. I was
We've done some
hoping
cool things.
because I saw when Salah was clean shaven. I was so hoping that by the end of the game, like he had like a beard. That would have been the best.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was I was over it. I need to move on from them and root for my friends' teams again at the playoffs. Just disaster.
Now, Novak, you know what it is for me? Like, again, and this goes for all sports, right? It's not even the NFL. You know, we all have teams in other sports and everything.
Sure.
My whole life revolves around just hoping and praying that teams I despise don't win a championship.
Yes.
No, my teams aren't going to win anything. And I'm talking about all the Knicks and all these Yankees and all these other teams. Like my teams aren't going to win anything. So, like, it's all about it's just a matter of I just have to, like, here we are entering another NFL postseason. Look at this.
Mike's in.
Hisman is in.
He made it.
Coming in hot.
Parachuting in.
We already made fun of you in the darts.
Yeah, look at I got my dart shirt on, you guys. Look at it, the whole thing. I didn't even.
So there was a uniform.
Chico's bail bonds. He does have a
bail
uniform.
bonds on the back.
Yeah, I think it does.
This is unbelievable. Oh, wait till you listen to the recording, Mike. You'll hear. Yeah, we do.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Oh, we have a whole dart segment. It's great.
Right, let me get set up here. All right. Sorry,
I was in the middle of talking about teams that are teams. Well, you just missed a great Novak rant about the Jets losing and tired of losing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll give it a listen. This is
I mean,
proof we do this live, right? This is
You hopped right in. There was an empty chair, and then there was your picture. You know, like woo.
I forgot my hat. Had to go back.
By the way, Mike's sporting the Michigan hat. Congratulations, to Michigan
Mike.
Wolverine.
Yeah, congrats. Yeah.
All right.
This is like Hisman joining a 4-man relay race, and all of a sudden, like the three of us, we got one of us, like we have the baton. Like, holy shit, here's Hisman. You can give him the baton for the final round, for the final lap.
So there was a lot of moves this week. We saw the end of the Saints-Falcons game where the Saints went to victory formation and then scored a touchdown, apparently at the whim of Jameis Winston. But Arthur Smith was none too happy with that. And at 12:02 in the morning, he was fired. So I wonder if Arthur Blank timed the email and sent it, or did he actually call him and wake him up at 12:02, or did he wait till Arthur Smith find out the next morning? I have no idea how this even happens. All I know is that he was fired at 12:02 a.m.
Yeah, that's
12:02. That's awesome.
That's a new feature in the latest Outlook, right? You can schedule an email to send.
Yeah.
So that's a good move.
Ron Rivera was fired. Big one today. Mike Vrabel was gone for the Titans. And I think he'll land on his feet. He may be a possibility if Belichick moves on to be in New England.
Yeah.
And then the GM for the Panthers, Scott Fitterer, was let go so that Tepper can continue to clean house. By the way, the stat I think of the century, doesn't even have to be this year. The Carolina Panthers did not run a play in the fourth quarter all year with the lead.
Saw that. Yep.
I saw that too.
So the game they won, I think they won at the very end, kicking a field goal.
Twice.
They did that twice.
2 wins, both on that's incredible. I mean, that's impressive.
I mean, that is Jet stat right there.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen? You don't run a play in 17 games in the fourth quarter with a lead.
Wow. Oh my God.
That
is one of those giant stats that we've been talking about all year. Like, come on, is that real? Like,
Well, the Giants were setting NFL records for like a month straight to start the season. With never before seen like negative stats. They had that one remarkable half against Arizona, which was on the positive side. But yeah, hey, I want to go back real quick, Scott, on because I like to give credit where credit's due. We all have our witty remarks and our comebacks, which is great, whether on here or on the text thread. And when Riverboat was canned, I think it was Novak who said, "Oh no, like the NFL, we don't have any more edgy coaches."
Yeah, that was classic.
So I want to give Novak credit for that one. I busted out laughing when I saw that because the Riverboat moniker, which the four of us don't know where this guy earned this nickname from. I mean, there's been plenty of coaches going for it on fourth down and this and that, and he's the coach that goes for it on fourth down when all signs say not to, and. So, oh no, what do we get? There's no more edgy coaches in the NFL now that Riverboat. This guy, there's no way that guy should latch on as he should never head coach again. No way.
Done.
Who was the guy on the Chargers? Oh, Staley. He didn't have an R in his name, Brandon Staley, or else he could have been like Riverboat Staley or something. He's the guy that like went for it no matter what. Like he would fake punt it from his own 5-yard line or something. You know, that's like Jesus.
You know, Ron's done because he just got fired from the Redskins. They're the team that pick up the Ron Rivera. So,
right.
So he's got nowhere left to go.
He could come back to Carolina because who the hell's going to take that job?
Yeah.
So none of us have playoff teams in the mix, but some interesting playoff things that are going on here. So the Lions have the first home playoff game since I think the pyramids were built, and who comes to play as the quarterback against them? Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah,
very interesting. We also found out that Roger Goodall came out and sort of slipped that they put on Peacock the Chiefs game because they're looking to expand the fan base to Swifties for Peacock. So that's why we have the Chiefs Dolphins on the Peacock game that half of America, I'm not going to watch on a principle at home. Right now, if I'm out with you guys and it's on, I'm watching it, but I'm not watching it at home. I'm not subscribing to Peacock. I'm not giving in to the sham of a system. But I cannot believe that the NFL is willing to go to bat with Peacock and host a playoff game on TV that's going to have the lowest viewership of any playoff game ever.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I mean, no, I know. Again, just the small little group that we know. I know several guys that are longtime diehard NFL fans, and we're just saying like, no, we're not bound down to this NFL. They're holding us hostage on Saturday night with this Peacock, and I know a lot of people are saying like, screw it, not going to do it, not going to subscribe to this, not doing it. So we'll forego. There's 5 other games this weekend, and then you got the rest of the playoffs. Like, so what? I'm going to miss one game. But the same thing, Scott. I mean, if we're still hanging around together on Saturday, which I have a feeling that might happen, so we may be eating our words, but we're not subscribing. We're just happen to be in an establishment that may have it on, that kind of thing. So
well, that's a great question, though, Cardone. Right? Is if you're a bar owner, why the hell do you want Peacock? You're not gonna.
It's true.
You know,
you could be streaming like MacGyver on Tuesday afternoon with the bar people.
Watch Days of Our Lives for the lunch crowd. I think that's
Magnum
on there.
PI. I don't even know what's on Peacock.
But I want to know what's the goal behind this? Who is getting Peacock for this game and going, oh, look at the shows on this thing. I want this. I have to have this. No one's doing that.
No,
nobody's doing
0%.
that.
Right? There's 3 million shows that you can watch on basic cable and all the other streaming services. There's not one person that is going to rent that thing and say, I need to have this Peacock thing.
Yeah. And guys, that Bills Dolphins game was just sickening. The amount of promotion every time Mike Tirico or whoever it was would talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Peacock next week. You subscribe now. You can watch the Peacock game. And at that point, they hadn't announced who was going to be on it. I don't think they did that till halftime. And even then, I don't think it was known that it would be the Dolphins because it revolved on the end of that game.
Yeah.
So they're talking about Peacock the entire game, and I'm like, shut the fuck up.
It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
And they were talking about it like it was groundbreaking. The first streamed playoff game in NFL history. You're totally losing your original fan base.
Exactly.
You're dead right about that, Novak. I noticed that this weekend watching the games. They made it out like it's an event.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're just rubbing salt in the wound for everybody. Nobody gives a shit about this.
What I would love to see is the breakdown a few years from now from the number of fans that they actually gained by going to Peacock versus the number of people that they've alienated and pissed off that are leaving watching the NFL, because that to me is that's an unknown. Like guys, I'm angry about this. I'm not going to stop watching NFL, but I'm not watching the game on Peacock in my house. And the thing is, what happens if there's enough people that do this and they're like, fuck, screw you.
Yeah. If I could drop NBC, I'd drop NBC right now. That's how mad I am about it.
Yeah. Agreed. And and I love what the NFL did some years ago. I forget the first Saturday night game, but when they changed the format, I mean, even before, I think it was, because guys, I'm trying to help me remember. Even before they added the seventh playoff team, the extra wild card, then they started the Saturday night playoff game.
One Saturday night game.
Okay. Well, and I thought it was awesome because remember back in the old days, it used to just be like the 1 and the 4 and then the 1 and the 4. To make the Saturday, to change it from 4 and then like a Saturday night game, that's awesome. As an NFL football fan, like even if your team's not in it, like Saturday, afternoon, you're doing your, whatever errands or doing stuff, and then to settle in for the Saturday night game. So I love the fact that the NFL started that years ago. But this Peacock thing, I'm telling you, I hope it backfires on them. I really do. I hope this backfires on them.
Well, now the NFL. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. My quick thing is, and they took the best game of the weekend. I thought all along this would be the Colts and the Texans or something.
Yeah.
And they took the best game of the weekend and used this. I was shocked by that. So I'm pissed too. Go ahead, Scott.
It's for the Swifties. No, I was going to say here's the thing too. We talked about this last year, and it's a little bit different this year because I think both the games on Saturday are AFC games. But if you're playing in that Monday game, which the Buccaneers and the Eagles are doing, you have a possibility of being a whole 2 days behind whomever your opponent is next week. Now this year they seem to have structured it so it's not impacting them. All the other NFC games are on Sunday, but why in today's day and age do we have a disparity where a team has to play on a short week in the playoffs? It doesn't make any sense, especially when you talk about player safety, about fairness, all this other stuff. There should be no reason. Now it's not like it's Monday at 8 a.m. That's a Monday night game.
We talked about that a little bit last year, that the inherent unfairness of that. Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look to see if the Monday night game the previous year actually won or lost the next week. That would be interesting to see.
Was it us? No, we played on Sunday.
No, we played on Sunday.
No, we were. I think it was Tampa also last year. I think it was.
And then Tampa lost the next week, didn't they?
Well, no, I think Dallas played at Tampa last year, if I remember correctly.
It's a good memory.
Yeah, but didn't Tampa lose the next week?
Well, Tampa lost.
Dallas beat them.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. And then Dallas lost.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Dallas did lose.
Yep.
So we did find out. I'll get to the playoff predictions here in just a second, but I do want to talk about the NFC or the opponents we have next year, because the Giants are locked in. We play the AFC North, we play the NFC South, and then the extra game in the AFC is the Colts, which is manageable.
That's good.
And then the two other NFC games, since we finished in third place, are the Vikings, who finished in third place in the North, and the Seattle Seahawks, who finished third place in the West. So on paper, it's not bad. Giants also will travel to both Carolina and Atlanta next year. So two games in our wheelhouse to watch together in person. So
yeah, that's a favorable schedule for Carolina Giants fans.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, before, I think, we might have talked about this, but I was, all along middle of the season, I thought for sure the Giants were going to finish in dead last. They finished in third. So, it's hard, right? Because you never know what's going to happen year over year. The NFL, there's so many changes and teams go up and down quite a bit. So, yeah, I was thinking like, I want the Titans, the Bears, and the Cardinals. Those would have been the other teams that we would have had, finished in fourth, who would be playing. I just don't like the at Seattle bothers me because we know how hard that place is to play. I don't care what kind of team Seattle puts out there. I was actually thinking we might have a chance to play the Rams. But I think before the games even started, I think Seattle had already been locked in third place, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I heard that on Sunday, so I wasn't aware of that. I thought had the Rams lost, it doesn't matter. But yeah, looking at next year, we get the NFC. It flip flops now. We get the extra home games, so the Giants will have 9 home games next year and 8 road games. So and the schedule, the format hasn't changed since 2002, other than adding this extra AFC game. So. Yeah, I'm okay on paper. I'm okay with the schedule. Mike, I think we talked about this before you joined. When the schedule comes out, we better not get screwed again by who is it again? Who does the
AWS, the perfect schedule.
Yeah, we better not get screwed in the beginning of the year with. The good news is we don't have multiple West Coast trips and all that nonsense. So we'll see when the schedule comes out. But as far as the opponents. Yeah, we'll take it. I mean, Indy gave us a Grey Goose game last year, the only one we've had like in a decade. So maybe we get another one. Who knows?
Yeah, I felt like the Eagles game was a Grey Goose game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I thought you called Grey Goose a little early on that. I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah,
I thought it was an early Grey Goose call.
I called it at halftime. I was in fact drinking Grey Goose.
Nice. All right, Goose goes down smooth.
So, playoffs now. Playoffs. I actually see there's a commercial with Jim Mora doing the playoff thing that now. But we got let's get into our predictions. So regular season, Mike, what was the final standings?
Yep, the final standings for the regular season. Novak with 24-10 to win. Cardone right on his heels, nipping at his heels, was 23-11. And then me with my brilliant Giants and Jets pick last week, closed on costs, so we both finished 22-12.
Guys, I want to say this first off. We both all of us almost had double the number of wins versus losses. And whether it's not really an achievement when you're picking just straight up winners, but here's the thing. We're picking games when the Giants and Jets are playing.
Yeah.
And we have to pick against our teams to actually get to those records. So that's actually quite good.
Not only that, but if all 4 of us had realized just how much ass our team was early in the year, the records would have been much better.
That's true. Super ass.
Yeah.
So first playoff game, Browns Texans. I'll start with Novak on this.
Man, this was a tough one because the Texans are home. But I like Cleveland in this just because of the momentum right now. I like what they're doing, and I think the Texans have had a couple of injuries. They're still young, so I like Cleveland here.
Cardone?
Yeah, I think this one I wasn't sure which way I was going to go. I've been kind of teetering back and forth, but my ultimate pick is Cleveland. Also, I think C.J. Stroud is as impressive as he's been. I think the Browns defense gets after him. The Browns got a really good defense. I think Stroud's not ready to win his first playoff game just yet. So I think the Texans have that case of kind of fortunate to be there. I mean, it definitely deserved to be there. They went out and won last week. Which by the way, was a wild game against the Colts there. So that was an interesting, exciting game for Houston. But my pick is the Browns.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm right with you guys. I mean, this one went back and forth for me, and I agree. With Cardone's point about Stroud not quite being ready. He's going to be a great quarterback in this league, and Cardone's point about the injuries and they're coming in a little banged up. And Cleveland's hot. I got to pick Cleveland as well.
And guys, there's a little bit of recency bias going on with the Texans too. I mean, the end of that game with the Colts. I mean, if Minshew throws the ball and the running back catches it, they likely win that game.
Yep.
And it was it was almost like the Tyrod Barkley missed play a couple weeks ago. And Stroud had a great first pass, and then after that they didn't do a whole lot until the second half. And I heard someone come out and say that was the best performance by a rookie quarterback in a clutch game I'd ever seen. And I would have loved for Dan Marino to have been in the room for that. Dan Marino went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm sure none of that was clutch.
Now, I think C.J. Stroud has been fantastic, and of course he's taken a lot of snaps with the lead, unlike Bryce Young this year. But I also am going to go with the Browns. I think this is. I think Joe Flacco is going to at least push this team to the next game, and I think they'll give the next team after this a good game. But I think the Browns will probably exit after this. But they're moving on in this game, I believe. And so since I went last, I'll go first for the next one, the Dolphins Chiefs. This to me is a tough game. The Dolphins, they don't seem like they can beat good teams, but the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs, but they do have a home game here, and I'm going to go with the Chiefs for 1 week. I also think they'll lose it next week. Now watch, they play the Browns, and I have to figure out who I go back on my word on.
Yeah.
So I'm out.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. So yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs in this
one. There is a path here where Kansas City might not have to play a road game in these playoffs. I believe if the right things can happen. So that would just make me want to barf. But I'm going the other way. I think the Dolphins they've been shit on a little bit lately. Totally agree that Kansas City is not Kansas City. I think we're going to get a good effort by the Dolphins, and I think. I think they get it done. I think Miami wins that game. So I picked 2 road teams in the playoffs. I already hate that. This is like my fantasy draft. I got 2 picks in. I'm throwing them out.
You're already like, season's over. Is it my turn?
Cardone?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, this is another one that I was going back and forth with. I think I've done that with a number of games, but this was certainly one of those. And I'm going, I'll give my pick and then my reasons. I'm going with Kansas City. And a couple of reasons are, one, it's just, I don't know, because I want them to lose. I'm done with Kansas City. I want them out. The Swifties, I'm tired of Kelsey. I'm tired of Mahomes. I'm tired of this team. But being a weather buff that I am, I always pay attention to these, to the weather. And it's supposed to be like bitter cold in Kansas City Saturday night. It's supposed to be like 10 degrees. So trying to see Miami go in there in a 10-degree Arrowhead, I still call it Arrowhead. I just don't see it. I see Kansas City. Again, they may not be the Chiefs that we're used to the last couple of years, but they find a way to get this one done at home. So give me Kansas City.
Is it not Arrowhead anymore?
It's not. It's something else, I think. I don't know. It'll always be Arrowhead.
That's stupid.
Who knows?
State. I think it's
Arrowhead
like Field at GHEA Stadium.
Something like that. For me, I think the Chiefs tend to struggle when Mahomes gets pressured and he gets to run around and he makes some mistakes. And the Dolphins have lost Bradley Chubb and they lost I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Phillips, right? And I just don't see them getting pressure on Mahomes. I think he's going to sit back there and pick them apart. And the cold weather thing was one of the points I had here too. So I'm going to agree there, and I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Stay in Novak. Steelers, Bills.
Tough Bills. I mean, I'm not even. If any of us picks the Steelers here, I will be incredibly shocked.
Cardone?
Same. That was one I didn't have to think about. Buffalo Bills are winning that game.
Mike?
Yeah, you can't pick against Buffalo here. I've really come over this year where everyone else is trying to get rid of Mike Tomlin. I've really come to love the guy even more than I did before, but this is an impossible spot for him without an offense. Buffalo easy.
Yeah, big props to Tomlin for the season they had. I think the injury to Watt hurts. Whether it's a grade 2, grade 3 sprain, doesn't matter. He's not going to be back for the playoffs, I don't think.
No, they're not going to win enough.
And he's definitely not going to be back if they lose. And I'm picking the Bills as well. Packers, Cowboys. I'm sort of the same vein in this game as I did with the Bills. The 2 teams I said are probably not going to advance this year are going to be the Steelers and the Packers for sure. So I'm taking the Cowboys.
Yep, this is a really good matchup for the Cowboys. Green Bay is a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I mean, the Giants gave them more than they could handle. Does that tell you anything? I mean, Justin Love beats up on bad teams. Dallas is not a bad team. This is probably if the Buffalo Pittsburgh game is the AFC bye, this is the NFC bye for Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah, same. Dallas at home, they got that streak going right now where they've won 16 straight or something like that. Green Bay, Dallas's offense is rolling right now, putting up points. They'll score over 30 easily, I think, on this Green Bay defense. I don't see Green Bay putting a big fight unless there's some crazy number of turnovers or something stupid like that. But I don't see that, guys. Dallas wins by double digits here.
Yep, I agree. I think it's a fairly easy one to call. I think Green Bay is the team in the playoffs that's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Novak, interesting one. Matthew
Mhm.
Stafford comes back to Detroit. Rams Lions.
Man, this is the one that I want to pick the upset, and I want to take the Rams really badly here because it's the Lions. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna
Cross that out. All right.
I am. I'm gonna take the Rams here. My buddy Ted is a huge Lions fan, and he said I'm just happy to be there. But I think Stafford comes back, and I think he beats the Lions.
I like it.
Cardone?
Yeah, this is same thing, Novak. I'm not going to give my pick just yet, but this is one where same thing. I want to go with the road team and go with the upset here. Just because it is Detroit. If there's a home team that's going to, I can see losing, it's, Detroit's right there, but I have a different motive for the divisional round, and I desperately want to see Detroit go back to Dallas, which is what would happen if both those teams win.
Right.
So and I have a great feeling. I predicted this last year with our own Giants against the Vikings, where we lost to Minnesota at the end of the year in the regular season. I'm like, well, maybe we see them again and beat their ass, in Minnesota in the playoffs. So I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but you can see where I'm going for already next week. So give me Detroit in Sunday's game against the Rams. So I'm going with the home team, Detroit. I think they'll find a way to get it done. I like that. That's an intriguing game. I think I'm excited about that game. I think that's going to be a really good one. The Rams are playing really good right now. I expect to see some points. I just love Campbell and what the Lions are doing right now. So they seem like they're on a mission. So, but yeah, Detroit wins.
Yeah, I'm right with you guys. This could end. It's not maybe the biggest marquee matchup on paper, but it could very well end up being the best game. And I too desperately want to pick the Rams in this game. But my thing is, I've already picked two other road teams to win, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to pick Detroit.
It's funny. We talked last week about Campbell not wanting to go to overtime, and that's the reason he ran that play, from the 7-yard line to the 2-pointer. And then he plays everyone on Sunday and gets Laporta injured. Their rookie tight end who's been just, fantastic this year. And I think that could play a role in this game. But I am going to take the Lions because I just think the Lions are going to be riding emotion. It's their first home game since God knows when for playoffs. And so I'm taking the Lions. And then the final game is the Eagles-Bucks. And I would normally pick against the Eagles in this spot, except for the fact that they're probably playing the team that's probably least deserving of being in the playoffs. And everyone could talk about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield had a shit game against the Carolina Panthers, and for half that game, the Buccaneers were struggling to beat the Panthers, which would have derailed their playoff hopes. And everyone going into that game was talking about what a renaissance Baker Mayfield has had. And in the last couple of games, he's played like crap. The Eagles defense we know has not been strong this year. But out of all the teams in the NFC that could have possibly gotten this matchup, Philly got the best team they possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, I'm taking the Eagles. I don't see the Bucks beating them. The Bucks are not a bad team, but it would have been the same if they had played the Saints, they had played the Falcons, whoever it was coming out of the NFC South. This is a shitty game.
Yeah. For all the reasons you just said, that's exactly what I was going to say, almost verbatim, is that here comes Philly dropping like a rock, and they get thrown a life preserver in the playoffs. That just makes me sick. But Philly's going to win the game. I don't even care that I'm picking another road team there. Philly's going to find a way to win that game, I believe. I'll be cheering like hell for Tampa Bay, but I think Philly's going to find a way to win that. They couldn't fall another spot, right, and have to go to Detroit and just get their doors blown off. That couldn't happen. So, I'll take Philly there, but I almost guarantee that's the last time I'm picking them in these playoffs.
Cardone?
Yeah, it's the Eagles. They're going to pull what we were talking about just before. The Jets lost 5 straight in '86 and went in and won a playoff game. Eagles are doing the same thing here, just for the reasons you guys said. It's the Eagles. We know that I don't care what they've done the last couple weeks. We know their defense stinks right now, but Tampa Bay stinks. they just stink, and the Eagles will win that game. I don't know exactly how it's going to go down, but give me the Eagles. They're not losing to Tampa. They're just not.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. As bad as the Eagles looked against the Giants in a loss, the Bucks look worse against the win against the Panthers. That game was. I mean, we've saw some really bad Jets and Giants games this year, but I watched a lot of that Bucks Panther game. It was awful. I think the Eagles sadly win this game, but man, how much would we love to see them lose?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for people that went to the Panthers games at the end of the year this year. It was terrible product, terrible.
Yeah.
A lot of times,
A lot of respect
weather.
for them, though. You got to respect that.
Oh yeah, those 200 that showed up. By the way, was there a more miserable game to watch at your house than the Ravens Steelers? I mean, there's I don't mind snow. I'll take snow, but freezing rain and drenched ponchos and stuff like that just looked miserable. I was on my couch shivering.
Yeah, you can't warm up even at home watching that game, right?
Yeah, I was under the weather after just watching that game on TV. I think I think I got the sniffles just from watching that on TV.
Yeah. So Novak, I'll
six games, 4 picks apiece. So we got 24 picks. We have exactly 2 different.
Yeah.
Novak picked the Rams and Mike picked the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So Novak, staying with you. Pet peeves.
So I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, my pet peeve is also weather related. So you guys saw the Jet Patriot game, right?
Yep.
Sure. Did you notice by any chance that it snowed?
Did it?
Because if you didn't notice, the commentators reminded us on every single play. Everything from the center to quarterback exchange to the slipping every time they dropped back to pass to the snow getting in the faces of the receivers to having to tell us that snow is on the ground and it's hard to see the lines. Like it's like we talk about. They get to the game, these commentators, they show up and they go, all right, what are we going to talk about today? Oh, well, it's snowing out. Maybe we should just beat that to death for 3 hours and have that be the narrative for the whole fucking game. That's all they talked about was the snow. I was and they got to go to break. I got to hear "Hazy Shade of Winter" by the Bangles. Come on,
Jesus!
Just enough. It snowed. So what? Who cares? Move on.
Where was the guy who drove the snowplow?
Oh yeah,
back in the '80s. He was on
New England.
Yeah.
Tony Franklin kicked that. The barefoot kicker.
Yeah. It was like a 3-0 game against Miami, I think, or something.
I think it was Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy came out and he literally came out with the snow plow or the snow duster, that thing kicked up, and they won the game on it.
The guy was like a convict or something.
He was a convict. He was on leave.
Yeah.
So.
They let him out of jail to go run the snow plow at the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the only one who had the keys to the snow plow, evidently. I don't know.
When I saw the weather at that stadium, I wanted to run to a sports book and see what the over under was on the snowplow game mentions.
It was. I mean, I'm telling you, it was the whole game. The only funny comment was Ezekiel Elliott, which I don't like him, but his comment was, "I wanted to play my whole career in a snow game," and he goes, "To be honest, that sucked."
But didn't he play at Ohio State?
I don't know, but I guess he never played in a snow game, but whatever. But I thought that was funny.
Cardone?
Yeah, let's keep with the weather theme. I like this because I was thinking about this one leading up to today's weather here. There's been just nasty weather up and down the entire East Coast today. And Charlotte was no exception. So we got plastered with rain and wind and all that today. And you guys know I'm a weather buff. I love Jim Cantori. I watch the Weather Channel every day. So when there's bad weather happening, I tune in with a little extra fervor. And so, I'm one of these people. And I'm going to get to a sports analogy here in just a second to get my pet peeves. So you know that's coming too. My analogies and weather and all that stuff. I tie it all together with a big bow. So you look at the forecast. And I was since yesterday, really going back to like Sunday, I was watching the Charlotte forecast on the weather app very closely, and they changed the forecast like every goddamn hour. It's 1 to 2 inches of rain, 2 to 3 inches of rain, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 1 to 2. They flipped it back and forth for the Charlotte forecast like 12 times within like one day. And I'm thinking to myself, what other profession can you do that? So we just did our predictions. And my pet peeve was thinking, all right, let's just take a game like Kansas City and Miami. Like, Cardone, who do you got? Well, I got Kansas City winning by a touchdown. No, wait a minute. I got Miami winning by a field goal. No, I got Kansas City winning again. No, you know what? I got, no, give me Miami in the under. No, I'm going to take Kansas City in the under. Like, I'm just going to fucking change my prediction left and right until the game is over, basically. Like today, we had a rain event today come through. The forecast, they change it as it's happening. It's just, and as a weather guy, it's like, just, you know what? Just say, you know what? Leave it at 1 to 2 inches of rain or whatever it started, and just say, hey, you know what? We don't know what we're talking about. We don't know. It's just, we're giving our best guess. We got radar. We got Doppler radar. We got technology. Yeah. We got Mike Sedell and Cantori out in the field. Doesn't matter. Just whatever. So my pet peeve is just the forecasting and the predictions. Imagine doing that in any other profession where you could be that wrong. And what's the consequences? Oh, we missed that one today, folks. Sorry about that. Told you it was going to be 60 degrees and, sorry, it was 40. What does it matter?
Guys, we're going to come in on the budget at 40 million. Oh, wait a minute. Make it 22 million.
Right. Cardone, what's your sales numbers? Well, I'm easily going to be up this year. Like, no, wait a minute. I'm going to be. So, drives me crazy.
You know what I love about that too, and I probably mentioned this when we've talked about the weather before, but it's just something that always makes me. I laugh out loud every time it happens. So when they think there's snow coming, man, these guys get so amped up. This is gonna all be, no doubt 4 inches minimum, blah, and then nothing happens.
Nothing.
Right. So the next day they come on and they go, well, we dodged a bullet yesterday. What do you mean you dodged a bullet? This is the most exciting day of your life. You were so disappointed that it didn't snow. Don't act like you're happy it didn't snow.
But guys, schools were closed today up and down the East Coast.
Yeah,
I was getting emails from my apartment complex and from Duke Energy to go and get flashlights, batteries. I'm like, it's going to rain. What are you talking about?
My wife had a work at home day, a virtual day, because of high winds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if they did that for your wife, Scott, but for mine, they canceled today in the middle of yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah,
before it even started, right?
She knew when she got home from work last night that she didn't have to work today.
Exactly. Steph came home. She's like, by the way, tomorrow's a virtual day.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? I'm working virtually.
I work virtually.
Mike, pet peeve?
Yeah, believe it or not, I got one. I came in hot, and I thought the whole ride home.
By the way, did you win?
Yeah.
Well, we played 3 matches. We won the first 2 and lost the third, and it was single elimination. So we didn't make it. But it was a handicap match, which could be my pet peeve tonight. I'll tell you that right now. We played a team easily as good as us, and they got 175 points to start the game.
What?
We never caught them. We never got anywhere near them. So yeah, that's handicapping in darts is my pet peeve. No. So
I don't even know how that works.
I don't either.
So no, my pet peeve is, and you guys were kind of talking about it right when I came on, I think, is this ridiculous thing that they have now where they have so many stats that they can make any game or anything a player does into the first time that's happened. And they just keep adding, if you've noticed, they keep adding a stat to it until that's the only person that's done it, right? So like, no one's ever thrown for over 315 yards and ran for, how much did he run for? All right, it ran for at least 89 and had more than 20 incompletions, and one more. We'll give it. They just keep adding a stat on until he's the only person that's done that. And because what got me going on this was I saw a headline last week actually, right when we were coming on, but I hadn't formed it into a pet peeve yet. But it was talking about how this stretch by Joe Flacco is the most prolific in Browns history by a quarterback. So I'm like, really? So I start reading the article, and that's what they were doing. They were just adding numbers till they got to one number over what Flacco did. And they just kept doing that for 6 stats until they said he's the only one that's ever done that. And I'm like, what was the next one going to be? If they couldn't find the 7th stat, is it going to be with 2 C's in his name to do this?
That's awesome.
It's just a new thing that I've noticed, that they do it for teams and team records. And, no team has ever rushed for less than this in a game and thrown for less than this and been ahead at the end of the third quarter and then lost the game by a field goal or less. It's okay, but they've done that and lost by a field goal or more, right? I mean, so they just keep finding the stat until they make it unique. So that's my pet peeve this week.
I love the one where Baltimore is 11-0 when they have at least a touchdown lead and there's 1 minute left in the game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
And they put it on the umbrella of next gen stats.
Yeah.
It's a regular stat. It's not a next gen stat.
It's just they keep multiplying it out. That makes it next gen.
So my pet peeve had it focused around Chris Collinsworth, who I thought was particularly bad in the Bills Miami game. Part of it was because of the whole, just overproduction of the Peacock game. But I watched a play the Bills run, and I'm watching it in real time going, oh, that's a pick play. Not called. It's okay. I mean, you don't see him called all the time. But then Collinsworth actually goes back on the replay and goes, well, the Bills run pick plays, but they don't run illegal ones. They run smart ones. And I said, well, any pick play is an illegal one. It doesn't matter whether it's smart or not. It's by definition, a pick play is illegal. So now, again, we talked about this last week. Are rules malleable? I think rules are malleable. It's one of those things, well, it's the Bills. They're running that's a smart looking play. They shouldn't penalize that. Well, why not? You just took out the defender who's covering the guy who actually scores the touchdown. Why is this not a pick play? Why is this not called? And it's one of those things too. Another funny thing in that game happened. They threw a flag for an illegal man downfield, and they picked it up, and they showed the replay where the guy's leg was still within the 1 yard mark or whatever like that. Now, I'm telling you right now, they buzzed that down from upstairs and said that's not a penalty. There's no way the guy who threw the flag said, "Oh, wait a minute." In retrospect, that guy's leg was still a fraction in that yard mark.
Ankle and toe were easily behind the line.
So I have a pet peeve. We talked about this last week about how when they do go to the review board or whatever, it's just random. They just buzz down at certain times and say, hey, you got to change this. But they don't really tell you that they're doing it. They just do it in the guise of huddling and saying, is that really a penalty? Nah, it's not a penalty. Yeah, I'm guy in my ear is saying it's not a penalty. We can't call it.
Yeah, there's too much huddling up going on by the officials these days. What's funny about that, Scott, this might be a pet peeve all in itself, but the announcers reacting to penalties is always so results based, right? Mm. So Collinsworth goes into this thing about what a smart pick play, right? If the Bills get flagged for that, he's going to say, you can't do that. He's just gonna follow whatever the call was. And it actually happened last night in the championship game, but it's dawned on me several times this year in the NFL. It's the Giants get called for holding in the first quarter, and they look at it, and the announcers make a comment. Oh, that's kind of ticky tack, And later in the first quarter, they call a hold. The announcers are, I don't know what they're looking at there. And then, so after the first quarter, they come back and if the Giants wouldn't be shooting themselves in the foot, they might have, what do you mean? You said the 2 penalties they had weren't really penalties. I think that we're getting shot by the refs in the foot. We're not shooting ourselves.
Well, actually, it dovetails a bit into a segment we did last week when we were talking about the eye in the sky. And so our friend Ingrid and her husband Mark were talking about Pat Kerwin wanting this eye in the sky happen in the NFL. And we talked about how there's this buzz down factor coming from New York.
Mhm.
Well, what Pat Kerwin is proposing is that there's actually a ref at each game who's sitting up in the box, who's buzzing down, so it doesn't have to go to New York, so New York doesn't have to monitor everything that's going on. And I think they were talking about having a seasoned ref up there, like, a retired guy like Ed Hockley. Honestly, I don't want Ed Hockley anywhere near a football field. He made enough bad calls in his career that I really don't want him up there judging. If you're going to do something, go full time to the refs and put some guy up there who's not on the field usually, who can actually look down and criticize the calls that are being made without feeling like he's going over the head of his fellow peers and things like that. I think it's a great idea to actually have a guy at each stadium who's buzzing down saying, hey, we got to take a look at this. I also say what we said last week too. I would just go to the college system. Go to where they make the call. There's not really an extended review. There's just a discussion, and then someone buzzes into the air. Yeah, that was an incomplete pass. Just go to that. Don't worry about the coach's challenges, anything like that. Just get it right using the technology you have. And whether that happens through a buzz down system or whether it happens through the eye in the sky or whatever we're going to call it, just make it right. We have the technology to make it right. Just make it right. I don't understand why we're so averse to doing that.
It seems to me, is it me or is that just so simple? Like, that is an easy fix and answer to a narrative that has been going on this year and previous years, but this year more than any other, not just on the pod, but everyone's now talking about how bad the officiating is. Why not try it? I don't understand you. It's a very good point. To me, it just seems too easy.
I saw a sequence in one game this week that just harkened back to it. So there was a 2nd and long, and on the 2nd and long, there was an incomplete pass. It was like a 2nd and 16. So there's a penalty on that play for holding, and the team does not decide to push them back and make it, 2nd and 26 or whatever. They keep it at 3rd and 16 or whatever it is. And on that 3rd and 16 play, they do a 5-yard little out that is called defensive holding when the receiver's making his break. So you went from having a 2nd and 26 to a 3rd and 16, which is now a 1st and 10 because of a penalty that happened within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. It doesn't make sense to me when these calls are being made. These illegal contacts are just the bailouts. I even have my son doing it now. My son was watching the games going, Dad, they're going to bail him out here. And they did. It's like
not hard to call when you can see it coming when it happens. We had the question a couple weeks ago about how do you fix it, and we all kind of had different ideas. But I can say this: if you want to fix it, one thing, and Scott said call them when they're obvious, and that's a perfect answer. Just don't call a penalty if it's not blatant and affect the play. That's easy. But also, it's like, it's so obvious now to anyone, and all of us notice it now. I've got other people noticing it. You can throw a holding call if it affects the play and it's not 1st down, guys. It's fine. The world's not going to explode if you call a 2nd and 6 holding on a team. If it's obvious that it affects the play, throw it. Don't care what down it is. That just reeks of rigged. You can throw if you're going to leave illegal contact or defensive holding in the game. All right, like I said the other week, it's got to be on the receiver there, at least on the side of the ball or the side of the field that the play is going to. And then it doesn't have to be on 3rd and 15. You can do that. You can do that on 1st down if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that those are specific 1st and 3rd down penalties, it just looks terrible for them. It looks awful.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my son made a good comment the other day too. We were talking about just calling obvious penalties, and he said, "You know what that would do, Dad? It would eliminate all these receivers mocking out the penalty flag and stuff like that. If you just called what is blatant, then on these borderline calls, you're not going to have guys like doing the whole the whole animation and stuff like that. And I think that's part of what happens is guys are doing this, and the referee has to think to himself, well, was that a penalty or not? I don't know. The sideline's yelling at me. This guy's yelling at me. Do I throw the flag here? Just get rid of that shit. Make it. You almost have to tackle it. I would rather it be consistent, where you just go. Again, this is another thing that Belichick ruined, because Belichick was holding receivers in the Colts games years ago. Just go back and make it so that if it's blatant, call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sounds simple enough.
I heard a real interesting thing. I don't even know why I was watching it this week, but it was basically they were talking to the official, who's actually Phil Luckett, in the Music City Miracle game. And so this is something I didn't know. So they ran the Music City Miracle play, and then Phil Luckett went under the hood to make sure it was a legal play. Now, this can't be this way anymore, but apparently back then, Phil Luckett in that hood was seeing exactly what we're seeing on TV as far as the replays go. And I don't know if that's the case anymore, but so he doesn't hear anything, but if they're white, yellow penning, if they're doing the Madden Telestrator, he sees the Madden Telestrator. So he sees that they're drawing a line, and they're drawing a line where the ball is. So he's like, oh, they're talking about whether or not this is a backward pass. I better get this right. So the guys covering it on TV, I don't think they ended up swaying his decision, but they could. Because they're seeing, what they're drawing on the screen there, and the ref under the hood is like, he's watching them do that, and that could change a decision. So I just, when I had to, I almost had to rewind it. I wasn't paying attention to it. I rewound it and listened again. And he said, when we're under that hood, we're getting the exact feed of replays that they're getting at home, including all of the chalking.
Wow.
There's no way they must have their own feed by now, but I just thought that was interesting that, not only do you have to fight against the officials, but you're actually fighting against the announcer bias while the official's in there looking at the, while he's in there looking at it.
Because I have seen angles that showed that Music City Miracle was a forward pass,
I've been convinced both ways on replays of that. And I think that's why you don't overturn it, right?
Yeah. So we got a ton of questions tonight. The first comes from fan of the pod, Joe, the official, who actually asked if 2024 playoffs or is 2024 the playoffs or bust for Shane and Dable. And based on what happened this week with Wink, based on, I think, our draft position, I think it's going to be interesting. Now, I'm gonna say I don't know if it'll be playoffs or busts, because if we pick a quarterback at 6 and that quarterback starts immediately versus Jones, I don't know how you say playoffs or bust.
Yeah.
But if it's Jones starting the year and you work a rookie in, or if Jones stays playing the year, and we say we take a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round, yeah, I think it is playoffs or bust. And then the question becomes, does Shane and Dable tie their career to Daniel Jones' recovery of a ACL and how he performs next year? That to me is a bigger point, because if Jones doesn't perform and these guys get fired because of that, even though they picked their own guy, will that happen? So I don't know. I don't want to say it's playoffs or bust, because I think it depends on what happens in the draft, and it's a little bit too early to say that. But I will say that I think now that Wink is out of the picture, that the Heat's probably ratcheted up on Dable to continue to have good results.
This is a weird year, offseason, for the Giants. But you just mentioned this, Scott. My first thought was the same thing. It's like the quarterback position. What's the state of affairs there? And it all depends on what you just said. So I don't want to repeat it, but it's hard to answer that question, because if you just highlighted the two scenarios really, and so I can't really add much to how you answered that, other than it depends on. And Jones, we don't like, when did he go? He went down. I mean, what's his timetable? I don't think he's going to be ready.
He went down in
November
or whatever.
I thought it was okay. So, what's his physical condition when he, returns at the start of next year? It's just, a lot's going to depend on that, of course. But I'm leaning more towards it is playoffs or bust rather than not, just because it's the NFL and coming off a 6-11 season. The team has to rebound. Daboll's got to rebound and can't suffer through another 6-11 season. That's for damn sure. So we know that. And it all depends also. It's one of those, could it be one of those years where you go 9-8, 10-7, and maybe you don't get in the playoffs? I don't think so, but that can happen too. So would 9-8 be a failure next year? And they let's say they go 9-8 and they don't get in. Does that mean people are getting fired? Is Daboll getting fired? Don't know. You got to see what the rest of the conference does as well. So tough to answer that question now.
Yeah, my gut says no. I think Mara loves these guys, both of them, and it's hard to imagine that we're at the end of Daboll's second year and we're talking about playoffs or bust. I mean, this was the dream team when we hired them, not even 24 months ago. This was, certainly the best Giants hires in recent memory, and even fans of other teams were like, crap, Giants are going to be good again. And so we have. I don't know how they look at these things, but I will tell you this, and this sounds like homerism, and it probably is. The Giants are 3 plays from winning 9 games with that roster this year. 3 plays from winning 9 games with that roster. They'd be in the playoffs. I think that's absolutely remarkable. Now, did they play like shit to be in a position to need one play to win those games that they didn't make? Yeah, of course they did. And in the games they lost, at times they looked horrific. But how much of a pass does Daboll get for this roster this year? And Shane too. When I say them interchangeably. So I feel like unless the wheels absolutely come off this thing, that Daboll and Shane will both be back next year, but that will certainly be huge improvement or bust time. That's what my gut tells me. I do think drafting a quarterback high gives them both cover.
Yeah.
If they decide to do that and that guy ends up playing a significant amount of time this year and the Giants finish, around 500 or 6 wins again, that probably gives them some cover for another year if they need it.
Yeah, that was my thought too. Now, you weren't here for the opening, Mike. We were talking about Wink a lot. And I did hesitate to go deeper because I knew we had some questions on that. And Joe asked, what does the Wink resignation say about the team culture? And, from my standpoint, there's a lot of chatter around what Wink did as being almost like sabotage. Like, he's basically, he had the play call with the 24 Jack Bauer, moniker on the back, basically saying it's 24 hours before I leave. The Giants, Giants fire his the Wilkins brothers, who were his right-hand men, and there's been animosity growing over the last several weeks between Wink and Daboll, if you listen to the rumors. And the one guy who's reported as Jay Glazer, who's usually dead on. So, it looks like it came true in this situation too. I don't know if it's so much of a team culture thing as it is a Wink thing now. The more I look at what's coming out about Wink, this is the second team now Wink is leaving. Wink left the Ravens with a year on his contract. They didn't come out and say he was fired, but he wasn't asked to come back. And basically, the Giants are a similar scenario. And you're talking about a career coordinator who has had mixed results back in, throughout the time. And you look at the Ravens where they are now versus where they are when Wink was there. It's not like they lost a step. I tend to lay this at the feet of Wink only because I don't have information that says otherwise.
I get the read from this team that the players love Wink and they love playing for him. So when I heard this news, it concerned me immediately. Like, what's going on in there for this to happen? And it started out, I didn't really believe the stories coming out about Dable and Wink. I thought that was some media made up stuff. Pretty clear now that wasn't, that there's a rift there of some type, for sure. So yeah, it concerns me, but I also agree with your last points there, Scott, where big deal. There's a lot of good defensive coordinators out there. I didn't watch closely enough for most of this year to say the Giants lost a bunch of games because we blitzed too much. I don't think that's true. And I think Wink's one of the really talented defensive play callers in the game today. But
he's had bottom. He's had
bottom
ranked units now for 3 out of the last 4 years, whether it's in Baltimore or New York.
Yeah, I don't think we feel like we just let Bill Belichick go. It could, the culture question that Joe asked concerns me more than the on the field losing of Wink. What's going on in Dable's locker room? Is the defense pissed off? I don't know. I mean, they equally seem to love Dable as much as they love Wink. So it's a confusing situation. Yeah.
Cardone, any thoughts?
I don't know. I think you guys kind of summed it up really well right there. I mean, I wasn't sure. Again, we don't know as fans. Like, tend not to believe that there's really a rift going on there, but hard to understand what the media's saying versus what you're just observing. When you're watching the games and things. Obviously, we have no idea what goes on in private conversations, the locker room, the sidelines, all that. So, I don't know. I mean, tend not to agree with what the media is saying, but in this case, there certainly seems to be kind of a rift there with those guys. So I have to trust. I just trust that, like Mike just said, he's like, we're not letting Bill Belichick go here, or so we'll find a good defensive coordinator to replace him. I trust Shane, and I trust that the Giant leadership knows what they're doing and they have a plan. Got to just hope that they know what they're doing and they have a plan.
It's a talented unit. It's an attractive job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I hate to say I worry about this because I don't know how talented this guy was. He was with the Bills and he stepped away from the game. But a name that always gets put up when you're talking about Dable and his Bills connection is Leslie Frazier.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if Leslie Frazier is a guy we're going to get behind, or, do we want a young and upcoming guy? So that's always one of those names that's polarizing. Because I don't know enough about Leslie Frazier other than Buffalo was decent with him, but he's getting up there in age too. So it's.
What about Pierce?
I'd love to have Antonio Pierce, to be honest with you. If the Raiders don't have Antonio Pierce as their next head coach, they have a problem. Yeah. This is a second interim head coach that's done well, and they'll get rid of if that's the case. I would love to have Antonio Pierce as a defensive.
How about this guy, Jesse Minter? If Harbaugh leaves,
that's actually a question. So we're going to get to this because Peacock likes to stir the pot, and one of his questions is, would we like Harbaugh over Dable? I don't want Harbaugh. I don't think he fits the Giants. Let's call it the Giants way, whatever you want to call the Giants way. Harbaugh's one of those guys. He's very similar to what we've always talked about with Rex Ryan, and maybe we're seeing it play out with Wink. These guys with these attitudes and stuff, when things don't go right, they're done.
Yeah.
He had success while he was in San Francisco, with the 49ers there. But I think you hit the nail on the head there, Scott. It doesn't seem to fit the Giants' way, if that's a thing. That, as Giant fans, I think we know what we're talking about. With the Giants culture and the way they operate. I don't think he fits in. Now, Daboll, he's the right guy for the job right now.
I believe so too.
He just is. He's the right guy right now. Now, you need to win. We all know that. It's the NFL. So Daboll has to put together some a winning culture and string together some successful seasons to keep us feeling that way. But he's the right guy for this position right now, no question.
The Peacock Oh, Novak.
I was
you got
about to say, I want to say real quick though, if the Packers somehow beat the Cowboys, Harbaugh's going to Dallas.
Oh,
That's a match made in heaven right
That's
there.
a good
too good a
prediction.
fit.
Yeah, it is.
That's too good a
Yeah,
fit.
There's a lot of chatter about him coming to Carolina, but that Tepper doesn't
No
want
way.
to give him control.
Nah.
He would. No one's going to touch this job with any credibility.
Yeah,
No.
Harbaugh can have
No.
his pick of any number of jobs. I don't think Tepper. I don't even think Tepper's got enough money to throw at Harbaugh to make that happen.
Now, I did hear a good rumor that he might go to San Diego or L.A.
That seems to be the
which would be a good.
That would make
that
sense.
might be a good fit for him.
Yeah,
Kinda.
that makes sense.
yeah. That's the biggest buzz I've heard, and apparently he's got a man crush on Justin Herbert. So yeah, that's keep him. I don't want him coaching the Giants. I agree with Cardone with what Cardone just said. Dable's the right guy. He's the right guy to be here at the right time. I like Jim Harbaugh, obviously. I don't want to have to play against him very often. So yeah, go to the Chargers, man. That's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go to the AFC West.
Yeah.
And as Peacock likes to stir the pot, he also was asking what our thoughts are on Justin Fields coming to New York. Would he be a good replacement for Daniel Jones? And guys, Justin Fields is getting a ton of love for salvaging the back end of the season for the Bears, that it was terrible. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And I think the Bears are actually going to move off of Justin Fields and pick a quarterback.
One of the great stories of this offseason to me. I have no idea what the Bears are going to do right now. And I like it that way.
But Peacock should know better listening to this show than to ask us that question. He knows. I mean, he knows our answer. Justin, I would disappear from. I don't know. I'd go to Morocco for like a year until Fields is gone. Like I would still be on the text thread, so you guys would still be able to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
But there's no way I'd be in this country if Justin Fields in a New York Giants uniform. So
Just
let me know when he's gone, and I'll come back. Yeah.
Morocco, out of all the places.
Yeah, it's like.
a good
Well, I
place.
figure like
Is
if I build a raft and I just kind of just dump it in the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf Stream will take me up the Atlantic coast. Morocco is kind of the first place you hit with the Gulf Stream. So I figured, plus a warm weather place. I don't want to go anywhere that's cold. Like if I start to go too far north to like Norway or something, I'll make a sharp right.
Too much.
Yeah.
I'd say to Cardone, hey, it sounds like you're having a great time there. I'm going to come visit you. Nah, no, I'm coming out of spite. Cardone doesn't want me there. That's where I'm going.
Like Del Boca Vista.
We're gonna be the shuffleboard cord.
Yeah, all over the clubhouse.
So our buddy Mike also asks, how far should the Giants go to sign Xavier McKinney? And I will say this: McKinney had a great game against the Eagles. He's been great back there at safety. I might look to franchise him for a year, put the franchise tag on him possibly. But I will say this: I wouldn't break the bank for McKinney just because Dane Belton's back there. We let Julian Love go in a similar situation. And there are a lot of Giant fans actually are like, well, wait a minute. Julian Love just made the Pro Bowl. Julian Love had a terrible season this year, but he played well on the Monday night game at the end of the year that got him a lot of votes for Pro Bowl. So the Pro Bowl, again, it's a popularity contest. And had Julian Love stayed in New York and played the way he did this year with Seattle, people would be wanting to run his ass out of town.
No
I like McKinney. I really do. I don't know what it takes to keep him. I would give him a fair contract because I do think he's a guy you could build around, but safety is one of those positions too. It seems to be one of those that you can bring guys up in.
Yeah.
Giants always seem to have serviceable safety play. I mean, that just doesn't seem like a position right now in the NFL that you overpay for it. I would just make him a fair market offer. And if another team wants to overpay him, then sayonara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the same thing, like market value, whatever that may be. I mean, McKinney now, he definitely became one of my favorite players down the stretch on that Giant defense for sure.
Yep.
Made a lot of key, good plays, made a hell of an interception on Sunday. against Hurts there. But yeah, no, same thing, guys. Where it's something where you can't overpay a safety. He's not Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're a lot of the trouble the Giants are in now are overpaying to keep their own players. It's gotten us. It's part of the problem that's gotten us here. So
yes, it has.
And Mike also asks if we have any priority signings in the offseason. We do a pod later in the year, closer to the draft, that talks about this. I'll be honest with you. I'm not prepared right now to say who we should sign because I don't know who's free agent and who's out there right now. So I can't answer it intelligently. I do know that we're probably in the market for a defensive line help and wide receiver. Whether we do that through the draft or we do that through free agency, I don't know.
Let's go a different route this year. Instead of drafting no miss offensive linemen, that's worked exactly once for us. Let's get some guys we know who can play in free agency on the offensive line and get them in there. Can we end this? Can we end this nightmare, please?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Novak, what are the Jets looking at in free agency?
Not the dick. No, I don't. Offensive line help, but like we've talked about, so are 31 other teams.
Yeah,
so I think you're going to end up overpaying for an average guard or a tackle on the downside of his career. And but because of Met Death, I think you have to get depth. You got to get 12 deep of guys that can actually play because of the injury situation, I think.
We didn't mention our safety situation with McKinney. It becomes less likely to retain him because of Jason Pinnock, former Jet, who had a really good year this year.
He's played well.
He did.
Very well.
Every time I watch the Giants, he's around the ball.
Yeah,
I do notice that.
He is a little bit. The other question we had that I wanted to hear Novak answer was Harbaugh over Saleh.
Are you kidding me? I'd take Harbaugh's wife over Saleh.
Can she grow a beard as good as him?
Yeah, right. She could be just as stoic, I'm sure.
I'm a little surprised by that answer. Yeah, I thought you'd be like, nah, we'll stick with Saleh.
No,
I want to see this week. By the way, we're going to be at the bar watching 2 playoff games. I want to see if any of the head coaches get any time on the sidelines other than like a couple of obligatory plays versus Saleh, who has like 35 plays a game.
Well, what's the first game we'll be watching?
Actually,
Houston and the Browns.
Can I answer that one a little bit, Scott? Because I tell you, watching the Buffalo Miami game, they love McDaniel. They do. The camera loves McDaniel, so he gets way too much airtime. So that it's and I guess who's it? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on Buffalo. The guy who looks like Novak.
Oh, McDermott.
McDermott. Not
McDermott.
Yeah, McDermott. Yeah, they did quite a bunch of headshots of both of those guys on Sunday night. So expect to see a lot of McDaniel on Saturday against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're not showing Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of get the McDaniel thing. That guy could be funny. Like I get putting a camera on him.
He's weird.
It's like Saleh and the Bills coach, they don't do anything.
No.
Well, like Novak said before, like Saleh's like the guy. It's an enigma that you put him on because he's like Jalen Hurts. His expression never changes. So why are we focusing on this guy? Are we looking just at how thick his beard is? Because that's it. That's the only.
Well, it's gone now.
If they get Saleh Cam going and he's not coaching, then we are onto something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No doubt.
Like they show Saleh like at home during the Cleveland Houston game.
Raking up some leaves. There's Robert.
You got Saleh Cam at home in Florham Park.
I thought about this during the Giant Eagle game. They showed Daniel Jones on the sideline once.
I saw that.
And if this had been a Jet game, Rodgers would have been on the screen like 25 times by the time they showed Jones.
Didn't even know Jones was on the sidelines. It's amazing. Thought he figured he was recuperating at home. First time I've seen him since his injury. Ridiculous.
So we do have one other last topic that Mike brought up, and that was, were the Giants set up to fail because of the start of the season? And he's talking about both the schedule as well as that first Dallas game. If you guys remember, That first Dallas game, that first drive, we're driving down. We have a false start by Andrew Thomas, of all people, and it's ironic it's a false start after seeing what the Eagles have done this year and other teams have done. We have to kick a field goal. The field goal is blocked. On that field goal getting blocked, Thomas hurts his hamstring. He's out most of the year. We end up losing the game from that point forward. And then the schedule having us go on the road to Arizona, having us go on the road to Seattle, all these night games in the first 5 weeks. Did that like set us up for failure? And I will say this. I don't know if it set us up for failure necessarily. I will say that the circumstances of that first game and then the following games that happened after that, when we're still trying to recuperate from like injuries and things like that, it set the ball going downward. And the problem you have in an unfair schedule, and I'll call it an unfair schedule because it's not like we were talking about where you have home away, home away, home away. It's one of those situations where if a team is on the wrong end of that, they definitely can get off to an early bad start. So is it unique to the Giants? No, but did it contribute to the end of the year record? I think so. I think
no question it did. When you look at just what was it again, 7 out of 11 on the road to start the season.
The start of the season.
Yeah, the road. Yeah, so no question. It's hard to win road games in this league, especially when you put at one stretch 5 out of 7. If you go from week 5 to week 11, they were on the road 5 out of 7. No, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 out of 7 weeks. Bullshit. Wasn't it an NFL first with when the schedule came out? The Giants, no team had ever been on the road like 7 out of 11 weeks to start the season or something.
The other thing was the Giants played 3 games within a 21-day period.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. It was like a 18-day period, something ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's unheard of, bullshit. We've seen. Well, I can't wait to talk about the schedule when the schedule comes out because it's. I mean, all of us. It's a major pet peeve, and scheduling matters. It really, really matters. We know the opponents, but the scheduling has a lot to say with your chances of winning and losing. Whether it's prime time, road division games, prime time. We've seen a million of those. So it's absolutely the Giants were set up for. I'm not saying they were intentionally set up for failure, right, Scott? I mean, but it certainly wasn't favorable. I can easily say that.
Yeah, this is something that I've been on. I don't know. I was probably 15 years old when I started on this. The Giants always get this type of schedule. I mean, a typical Giant schedule has us at home against a really good team week 1, and then on the road 2 weeks in a row against decent teams. And like Cardone said, it's hard to win on the road. The Giants have been terrible. Listen, they've been terrible. But these last how many years, they've not been as bad a team as these 0-5 and 0-6 starts. They've just not been that bad. The schedule makes it impossible. And then where do you find momentum when you're 0-5 or you're 1 when you're 1-5? So, I expect it to happen again. If the Giants ever get out of the first 5 weeks of the season, like 4-1 or something, the NFL better strap it up. Because
look what happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We were out first 5. I think we were 4-1 or 3-2.
Yeah. So, you almost know we're going to get Dallas to start the year because getting Philly I consider them, I don't know what they'll bounce back with next year. But right now, to me, that's a more winnable game. But we won't get them this year. That won't happen. And then we'll go, on the road at the Rams or something. It's just the way the schedule always plays out is, they want that big New York primetime audience in the first week. I get that. We're never going to get away from that. I understand. But it's always just seems like we're just fighting from behind at the beginning of the year. Not to mention, furthermore, Vartigat, is that we play these teams, these really good teams early in the year. If they always mix in primetime games. And, week 1 through 4, who's got injuries? No one's got injuries yet. We're not playing a banged up Dallas team in week 11 or 12 or 15.
Nope.
You know, we're playing them at peak strength. You know, or whoever. I'm saying Dallas. That's been the most typical one these past few years. But whoever it is, you know, we're not getting the way the schedule just shapes up. We're not getting any help.
You know what used to work back, you know, like 10, 12 years ago? Giants every now and then would open up against Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was a good game. You know,
I'll take.
we were
sign me
matched
up.
evenly
That's
with
gone.
Washington.
Yeah,
And then all of a
sign
sudden,
me
you
up.
know, when Eli Manning came on board, then we started drawing Dallas every year for like
Every
5
week
years
one.
for some
Yep.
reason.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that this schedule sets us up for failure. But I don't. Maybe I won't go that far, but it really sets the Giants up to having to be very good out of the gate,
Yeah.
and they're just not.
By the way, before we close, just want to give props. We gave our predictions last week, but Novak won the fantasy football championship over Mike.
Nice.
So,
Did
Yeah.
we were glad Cardone wasn't here. We were like, Cardone's gonna be bitching. We're giving predictions on a fantasy game for fuck's sake.
it was the perfect storm. It allowed us to talk fantasy without angering Cardone.
Well, the only thing worse about talking about fantasy football, like, is talking about someone else's fantasy football team.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can give you an example right here out of the gate, guys. The Eagles opened up this year with the Patriots. When do we get that game?
Yeah.
Right. Just a
When do
patty
we get
cake
that
game.
week one game?
Week one.
You know,
Yeah.
the week before or the year before, so we're back to 22 now. They opened up at Detroit when Detroit was, you know, one of the worst teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't those our opening
Yeah.
games? Why, you know,
Let's
that's
get a
Philly, too.
let's get Sunday 1:00 against the Bucks week one. You know, how about that?
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tampa at Giants Sunday 1:00. I'll take that.
How about Giants at home or away against Carolina week one? I'll take that.
I would take that too.
Absolutely.
Here's Philly 2021 at Atlanta.
Come on.
I'll take that in a heartbeat.
Of course.
It's a joke.
So, you know, 3 years in a row, including this year, those are the Eagles openers. What have we had? Dallas, and San Francisco.
we had the
Dallas.
Titans last
Well, we did
year,
have the Titans, yeah. On the road, though.
which we won.
Yeah. And they were supposed to be a pretty good team that year. I mean, that wasn't a.
Mhm. They made the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm to 2020 now, and it's at Washington, Philly.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, Philly's great out of the gate.
Yeah.
It better be.
You guys got anything else tonight? Lots to talk about. Next week we'll be back to talk about the playoff game, so there's got to be a hell of a lot less Jet and Giant talk. Well, maybe not if like the Rodgers Kimmel thing blows up again, but
It'll happen.
It could.
See if the Epstein list factors in next week.
Go away.
Kimmel already did a huge monologue on Rodgers and said that the only A's he got on his report card were the double A's in his name. So it's like,
Yeah. That his other one was Aaron Rodgers did the impossible. He made the Jets actually look worse.
and then Rodgers fired back today and said, "Well, I like a guy that's got a college education that can that has 10 joke writers and can read off a teleprompter."
Yeah.
Because he was making fun of Rodgers going to a community college before he went to Cal, which
And then he called out
happened.
Kimmel went to Arizona State and he called that out. But I know we're closing, but Kimmel needs to shut up too. He's this high moral character guy. He did the Man Show.
He was the
Can
Man
we
Show.
just remember this? So shut up, Kimmel.
It's great.
The girls bouncing on trampolines was his.
Yes.
Yes.
And the Juggy crew or whatever they were called.
Yeah,
Like,
the
it's just-
Juggies.
Yeah. So shut up.
So we are the Three Angry Giant fans. Mike showed up, so we were in full mode here. It was us. It was Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Jets fan Novak. So we will be back next week to talk about the playoff implications of this week, and then also the preview of the following week. And we'll stick with us through the Super Bowl, and then we'll then go into off-season mode. But we'll talk to you about that before we get there. So we appreciate the
Thank you, Scott.
questions.
So
Go ahead,
sorry
Mike.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could I just have one more thing? Because I've gone back now to 2014 with the Philly.
Oh,
here's the next ones. Washington, Atlanta, Washington, Cleveland, Atlanta, Jacksonville in 2014.
God.
Those are their opening games.
That's all their opening games.
Unbelievable.
Sign me up for half of those.
That's a joke.
Sorry
Jesus.
to interrupt the closing. I wanted
No,
to
that's fine. No, I want to thank everyone. Again, we've had a great year. We continue to have a good year to close. Appreciate all the questions and comments, and we'll see you next week. So until then, we're out.